Hello, this is Glenn W. Hunter, and with me today we have tips specialist Joyce Clarke, who is our researcher on all things COVID, and Shor Denny, trauma-informed specialist, trainer, leader, and chief bottle washer for tips, i.e. trauma-informed prevention services of the Inland Empire. We have a really fascinating topic today. We're talking about sports restarting. And there's so many elements to this discussion. And we're going to break it down to players' health, owners' profits, and players' protests. Those are our 3 Ps. So to give us a quick overview before we jump in July, the NBA planned to host players at the Walt Disney Resort near Orlando, Florida, where 22 teams with playoff chances will finish the regular season's 8 games before the playoffs. The postseason will follow at the same time and at the same site. Teams will be housed in 3 hotels, and they'll have between 6 and 8 teams in each hotel. This becomes complicated when you realize not only do you have a large economic incentive here, but also COVID plays into it, hence the quarantine and the special rules that are going around. And to add one more component, why it's interesting to us from a community perspective, are the protests that have been following pretty much across the country, but particularly in Florida, as they endure a spike in COVID-19 cases. So without further ado, let's start with data. Let's look at some of the facts. Joyce, what are the COVID stats in Florida right now?
I want to add, thank you, Glenn. Good to be here again, but I want to add hurricane season. Florida looks forward to that every August, September, or maybe even earlier. But hurricane season is coming, and that's when the players will be there. So those stats look pretty grim for Florida, who just yesterday reported they passed the 100,000 mark with a new record high of 4,000 new cases in the past 3 days, this past weekend. And that was linked to them finally being able to do more testing.
That is a very large number, So I think the next thing I want to make sure that we talk about from there is really sort of the safety guidelines and sort of the social impact of these players being in this kind of risky environment. Shor, do you have any insight you'd like to share on that point?
I just think it's crazy, right? Why would we do this? It sounds pretty interesting. You're going to take the family, the players, and you're going to quarantine them for the rest of the season among each other. But then are they going to have spectators there? I mean, when we're talking about the players' health, who thought this up, right? I mean, you just said there's a huge spike out there. How are they going to be protected? And then how are their families going to feel about them being taken away? Mentally, this doesn't look well at all. I did see that there was a statement that there would be mental health professionals that would be going with so that let's just add more to the COVID pal, right? I mean, hey, we can all get it, right? I mean, I need to understand what are the officials, the owners, what are they thinking? Do they really think that their players' health is less important than the end of the season? Are they really putting their players in jeopardy, and the families and the people that are going to wait on them, the restaurants that they're going to go to, these large groups of people? You're saying multiple teams. I mean, I thought that our Surgeon General and that Fossey, I thought he said small groups. I thought we needed to wear face masks. So this is kind of going against what we are all being told is healthy. And I just wonder why you would put these people in that predicament.
And I think there's a number of reasons. I think the primary driver is clearly economic. And I think that we'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that fact. But I think it's also important to think about the mental health component. I mean, really stay true to our mission, understanding a lot of the trauma that's going to result by this pursuit of economics. I mean, right away, you have the anxiety of knowing that there is a very vibrant pandemic surrounding you, and you're being asked to perform. And I think that in itself creates quite a bit of distress, not just with the players, but with their families and the people who depend on them. Would anybody else want to weigh in from the mental health component of what?
Well, let's just talk about, didn't we just watch this great debacle with Trump? Didn't we just see a large stadium that was supposed to be filled with millions of people, and we saw all of our national health officials saying no, no, no. Think of the mental health aspect that we are all individually going through with this tug of war. We have high officials saying that there is a disease out there that we need to be quarantined from, that we need to wear masks for daily. Our governor in California said, don't walk out the door without a mask. Basically, he has stated that. So when you are being put under those restrictions and then you see these privileged, maybe it's because of money, but these people that don't have to follow the rules, then we are messing up everywhere across the country, because we are telling more people that because of money, because of fame, that people, I guess they are, they won't get it. Maybe, the fame vaccinated them. I just don't understand. Mental health wise, everybody is at harm here. Us sitting at home that want to watch the game, that are now, conflicted of maybe I should be at the game, because why are they playing and they are breaking the rules? Then let's just break it a little more. I have the money, I can go, I have the time. I mean, and then we have the players who are very afraid that they are going to die playing this game, right? That they have to have mental health providers there for them to help them try to stay mentally well with all of the fear and the anxiety that they are going to be going through. I think that for money, that this is a lot of mental distress. I know we all have stress at work, but I think this has gone well beyond it. And let's talk about the owners who should have stress, because this decision that they're making could put all of their team at risk. They could be responsible for killing many, many people. So mentally, this is it's pretty deep, pretty bad.
You brought up a lot of excellent points, and I know that these concerns that you spoke of have been at the table. Remember that every sector had to have some guidelines, and they just didn't start them yesterday or last week.
Right.
Well, in March, they began working on guidelines. And going to Florida was the place that they found they could put all the NBA players and the WNBA in a bubble environment. Quarantine inside of a quarantine. And the NBA players said that everybody's going to get what they call a magic band, because they're in Disneyland, obviously. And this magic band is going to take their temperature, show their vital signs, so that very quickly the medical profession can gauge any signs of illness. They do want to catch it ahead of time. They can't prevent it, but they can catch it. So if someone does get it, they'll be in isolation. They have isolation housing, and they have to stay there until they get 2 back-to-back negative tests. Everyone has to wear a mask indoors, but they don't have to wear them outdoors. And I kind of looked at that in the guidelines, and I wanted to assume that no mask outdoors meant when they got on the court, on the hardwood floor to play the game,
Right.
that the players would not need a mask. That's the best I can determine from that. I think where there may be some great concern for players is that Disney housekeeping, Disney food service, they'll be wearing masks, but they'll have contact. They will be coming from an outside environment into the isolated, pristine bubble of the players. And some could get it. We don't know. And there are coaches there, all kinds of player crew is there. And I think part of the mental health being there that you talked about is very key. Because if these players don't have somewhere to go to draw out some of this stress that they are under, there's no focus on the game. And this to them is not a game. This is their job. Players have been allowed to participate in protests if it doesn't take away from their playing time. But what player is going to go outside that bubble to fly to Arizona for a protest, fly to California for a protest? The opportunity is there, but what player is going to put themselves in harm's way? So I have to agree with you on that.
You know, I think that we've explored it from both a mental health and a physical health component, and there's actually plenty of risk involved in this decision. But I think if we're going to look fairly at the risk, we also have to give credibility and understanding to the reward. And the owner's profits from this is substantial, to say the least. And at the end of the day, it is a business. So I think as we're looking at it from a profit perspective, how do you feel about the owners taking advantage of an opportunity to mitigate some of their losses that they're enduring in their business?
I bet you the 7-Eleven worker wants to mitigate their losses. I bet you there's a bunch of small business owners that want to mitigate their losses, but I don't think that they're taking other people's health and their wellness and putting it at stake so that they can get that. I think that we are in a worldwide pandemic. We are quarantined across the nation. And why would sports be different? Why would they be held at a different standard?
Because sports wants to be a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, many of us want to go back to work. Many of us are afraid to go back to work, but all of us want to go back to our financial situations before COVID. I understand athletes, you know, want to go to work. I want to go to work, right? I think that everybody wants to go back to work. But again, I think the risk is too high, and I don't understand in our society during all of this time that we're protesting, why would we think that the money, it sounds like slavery to me. It sounds like the slave owner has decided that their health and wellness is not worth the value of their profit, just like in slavery. And they are willing to let these people die for them to gain their profit.
That is a very good point. It has validity up and down. And I cannot argue with that because it becomes a personal decision. Different than slavery, we have players who are not only high paid, but who have a voice. And I think that in order for this argument to have some balance, let's look at how many employees come under the NBA banner. Not just in Lakers, California, but all the teams across the country, how many people they employ. Even the surrounding mom and pop stores near a stadium or parking lots generate some of that revenue. And they want the NBA to come back into their neighborhoods. You know, but when I look at the combined losses of the NBA because of this shutdown, between $350 and $450 million. And that includes your merchandising, your food, your parking fees. And those are the paycheck to paycheck people. That's the guy who sells peanuts, hot dogs, whatever that is. And they've estimated those losses, just if we pull those out, $150 to $200 million. So,
There's 20 million people right now. Sorry. There's 20 million people on unemployment. That's that popcorn guy.
Right.
That's that parking attendant. They are right now being paid, and they are not putting their life at risk being around others that might contaminate them. So when we're talking about that, there's 20 million people unemployed. If we're going to go back to work, I think that our country, they have a responsibility for us to be safe. cannot believe again that the profit is going to overweigh the human element of the argument.
The NBA is saying, I am an employer. You want the popcorn guy to go back to work, the hot dog guy, the parking attendant. Then the players have to take the risk, and they actually become the semi-employer, because if they don't play, if they cancel all of these games, it could cost $2 billion in losses if they don't play the remaining games.
But the point is that money's already lost, right? When we had the pandemic and we went into quarantine, the money was lost. So I'm not even saying, how do we get it back? How do I get back my contracts? How do any of us get back what we have lost with this pandemic? I don't see that we will. So I don't understand how, again, putting people at risk. Now, if we're all going to go back to work, and we're going to all take on this risk of getting our economy back online, which is what we're talking about, right? If we're all going to do it, then okay, let's phase in 1, phase in 2, phase in 3. But this specialty group thing, I just don't think is right. I think it propagates, again, the favoritism, superiority of certain people. I think that it mentally is not well for our country. We are battling right now in the streets every day for equality, for equal pay, for equal rights, for the right to vote, for all of these things that will make an impact in all of our lives. Seriously, I don't think that the football game or the basketball game has that level of importance in our society right now. So again, yeah, they're going to be an employer. I'm an employer. Are you an employer? I mean, a lot of us are employers, and a lot of us have lost a lot with this. I just don't think that it should work that way.
Yeah, there are a number of points that I would like to explore, and one of them is players are also homeowners, family men, and they go to their job. They want that job. So they are at the table. And this is unusual for these young players to be at the table. Bradley, Laker guard, has put together this coalition. We are at the table raising our voices. And they want to be able to hammer out the guidelines with the NBA Association. And that's what they've been doing. But you have to also look at the business aspect of it, in that if there's an opportunity for Commissioner Silver to get all these players, all these workers back, he's going to find a way around it while the virus is still doing what it's doing. And he's hoping that this bubble atmosphere in Disney Resort will kind of mitigate or prevent outbreaks. He can't promise anything, but he is willing to take the chance. But the players are the ones who are taking the risk, as you are suggesting. So the players aren't sitting on the sidelines saying, okay, cool, I'll play. Some are. Some make smaller salaries than LeBron James or Bradley or Leonard. So there's just a different fight, a different argument. Again, this is their job. Play is a misnomer in this instance. They want to go back to work. The passion is in them. And now I'm going to talk like a fan. They're so close. The Lakers and the Clippers are so close to the playoffs that a part of me wants the games to continue, even without the fans. The other part of me says they are so worried. They're taking so much onto that court floor. And that's in your area, Shor. They are taking worry about their families, worry about whether or not the guy that they touch on the basketball court has the virus asymptomatic. Their worries are gargantuan. When decades ago, all they worried about was making sure my sneakers don't get untied. But right, I am focused on this game. I am focused on this court. So, we can go back and forth, but the nuances don't really say what's going to happen. And that's the unknown. players have to decide to take a risk as a group, as a coalition, and just move forward.
Well, we see that our sports, and with the protests that are going on, I'm almost wondering if they're trying to take people away from the protests by bringing the sports back, right? I mean, we all know sports isn't here. We all kind of feel it's not coming back. It coming back would be special. It'd be great. It would for the fans, it would be Christmas, right? But right now, everybody's like, it's not happening. So with the world of it not happening, what we have going on are Kaepernick started a lot of this
Colin did.
right there on the field. Now, football players are a very intricate part of this protest. So, and the fans are too. So are we trying to say, no, instead of protesting on Sunday out at City Square, watch this basketball game or watch this? I mean, is it a way of a sleight of hand making us look somewhere else? I just wonder,
I think, again, good points and something to think about. It's the guidelines were put in place long before the George Floyd killing. And look at all the killings that happened before George Floyd became enough is enough.
Yeah.
So, I have to say that the guidelines were always in place. It was always the thought of the NBA Association to go get back, NFL to get back, soccer. NASCAR drivers had it a little easier because you're in the car by yourself. Whether you don't have any fans, but you're in the car by yourself. So just that whole idea of distraction, play the game and get back to protests later on in the week. It can be there, but again, I think this generation of players is not going to go for the okie doke. They're very savvy, they're very intelligent, and they see through so much of that. The commissioner is saying you can protest, but if you miss a game, you also will not get paid. You are allowed to make a decision not to go to Disney Resort. You're allowed to not play, but you will not get paid. And that's clearly in black and white. Now that's different than the WNBA. Those ladies have said, if you decide to sit out, you still will get paid. So I don't think it's to make it a distraction and to disrespect Black Lives Matter in its generic sense. I think that these guidelines were in place and it's more of an economic issue for the NBA Association.
I agree.
Divorce from the economic component to my prior point, but we're clearly in the round of the morality of the protests. I mean, the players will have a voice. Some of the owners are exercising their voice. I mean, the owners are not a monolith. I mean, they're a collection of 30 billionaires. They don't move always in lockstep. But when you think about the importance of them exercising the protest, how do they protest safely? Whether they're at home or in Florida, how do they protest safely?
I think it should be through social media. I think that they have a great voice on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and I think that they should use that voice. I don't believe that really going out, if they're going out and being in the protest, be safe, try to distance, make sure you're wearing a mask. But I really think that their influence can be felt deeply through social media.
Yes, the ones that have been more vocal, LeBron James had his tweet out. He started a voter support situation. The Lakers quickly jumped to one of the demands that was made by Bradley and his group, that they hire a young lady from UCLA, African-American professor, Mrs. Brown, so that she can talk to not the team, but the administrative, the front office, the crew, all of those people, coaches, on Black history topics, on sensitivity, on those things, and stay with that. It's not just a one-shot deal, but to stay with them and identify where the Lakers as an organization needs to go to remain more sensitive long-term. Now, the Clippers did something different. they flipped it and had a nice action item, which was they wanted all Clipper employees to sign a petition making Juneteenth a national holiday. So these are some of the things that are happening. And I'm glad that the young men are saying, put up or shut up. And, what is his name? Howard, he talked about he didn't know if he was going to play. He wanted to sit out the games. And that's when Silver came back with no work, no pay. So they're making a stand. And I think it's going to be extremely effective. And they're going to become the role models of the fans, of the young Black boys who are watching. How are you handling this injustice, this situation? And that's, I'll go back to that old saying, I want to be like Mike Jordan. That refrain became iconic because of who he was on the basketball court. Well, that refrain is going to change based upon how these young players protest and model and stand up, again, like Colin did for the NFL.
Ladies, we can go with this literally from sunrise to sunset. It is such a riveting topic, and it ties so closely to what we're trying to do at TIPS IE. You know, when you start thinking about it, there's the mental health component. Obviously, there's the profit component. Money does have influence in our society and culture. But there's the trauma that comes with the stress of putting your livelihood on the line for your profession and also for your passion, for your perspective. If you're going to protest, whether it's virtually or physically, you're going to be visible as a professional athlete, and you're going to be heard, and you're going to be argued with more vociferously than your typical lady or gentleman with a sign. There does come more attention and more pressure with that. And most importantly, what we're doing at TIPS IE from a social emotional learning process. Mm-hmm. Do you really understand how this is making you feel and how that's being reflected into the community that you're making yourself a part of? We are all connected, and we can't deny that. And I think we did a great job of demonstrating that point through the time we had. But as this time winds down, I want to say thank you, Joyce. I want to say thank you, Shor. Yeah. I think that you guys' passion really captured what was important with this difficult topic, and I don't think we're quite done with it yet. So we urge all of you to stay tuned to what we're doing. And if you want to make sure you follow us, Shor, if you could point us in that direction, how do they keep up with us?
Well, you can go to YouTube and Uplift Another, or TIPS IE, and you can find our videos there. You can go to www.communitynow.info and find our videos and leave us some information. Comment, subscribe, like, and share, please, so that we can keep this conversation going. And with your comments, let us know what you think. Let us know what you want to talk about so that we can stay on top of the issues that are going on today, and that we can, bring that conversation to your home. I think that Joyce has some tips, information that she can hand out to you guys so that you guys have more ways of reaching us.
Thank you, Shor. And the phone number is 951-282-7173. Again, 951-282-7173. To reach us by email, tips, TIPS, .inlandempirecal, CAL, @gmail.com. Again, tips, .inlandempirecal, CAL, @gmail.com. Glenn, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and this topic, I'm an NBA basketball fan, so this topic was very near and dear to my heart. And Shor, I really appreciated going back and forth with you for this enlightenment and for simply the joy of looking at another perspective, especially from the mental wellness perspective. So thank you.
Definitely. Hey, you guys, if you want to support us, look at the website Community Now, go to TIPS IE, and throw $5, $10, let us know, give us some love, and please stay with us. We're going to keep this going for as long as we can to make sure that you guys are getting, you know, different conversations and topics that we can talk about in our community.
Again, Joyce Clarke, Shor Denny, and I'm Glenn W. Hunter. And as you're out there engaging your community, making a difference, sharing your opinions, hopefully more informed after listening to us, I can't overemphasize the importance of each and every one of you. Be safe. Thank you.